Star Trek audiobooks hold a truly fascinating and distinctive spot in Star Trek media history. They've been around nearly as long as Star Trek novels themselves, offering fans another way to access more of what they love, another way to get more Star Trek. Stick around as I go through the history of Star Trek audio up to the modern audiobook landscape, go over some interesting facts, and provide audiobook recommendations along the way. In the 1970s, as Star Trek was cementing its legacy post-original series, Peter Pan Records offered fans early audio adventures. From 1975 to 1979, they released 23 record sets with original stories aimed at younger audiences, featuring dramatic presentations, vivid sound effects, and voice actors invoking classic radio serials from the past. While no major cast members were involved, these releases sparked imaginations and set the stage for future audio adventures to come. Those records are an interesting footnote, but Star Trek audiobooks with narrators reading the novels aloud truly began in the year 1987. Simon & Schuster AudioWorks, connected to Pocketbooks, the primary publisher of Star Trek novels, kicked off their official audiobook line. Back then, the dominant format was cassette tape, which came with rigid constraints on duration. A standard cassette tape held 90 minutes, 45 minutes on each side of the tape, so the majority of these audiobooks were heavily abridged. This meant condensing full-length novels down to their essential plots, often sacrificing subplots, nuanced character development, and those intricate Star Trek details that the fans cherish so much. Early on, the novel authors themselves managed the abridgments to preserve the story's integrity, but as production ramped up, a professional named George Truitt stepped in, occasionally making what some described as savage edits, trimming the books down to about a third of their original size or smaller. Creating an unabridged edition would have required 10 or more cassette tapes, driving the retail price up to $50 or even $100, a hefty sum back then, especially when adjusted for today's dollar value. Moreover, these audiobooks were more crafted for on-the-go listening, like during commutes or casual downtime, rather than extended uninterrupted sessions that might demand hours of focus. To compensate for these trimmed narratives, producers infused these tapes with rich, immersive sound effects and original music, transforming them into experiences akin to exclusive Star Trek episodes.
In its 500 millennia of existence, the entity had been given many names.
Listeners were treated to a zing of phaser blasts, the familiar whine of transporters, and the urgent blare of red alert klaxons, and a host of other sonic delights. The music was specifically composed for these audio productions, echoing subtle hints at the Star Trek theme without crossing lines into royalty territory. These audio elements were cleverly recycled across various titles, fostering a consistent, comforting auditory atmosphere, and tied these productions together. Although reusing the same audio elements on multiple books was an obvious cost-saving measure and can feel repetitive if multiple titles are listened to back to back. Of course, the real stars of these audiobooks were the narrators, particularly when beloved cast members from the franchise lent their voices to the productions. Those cast members gave an unparalleled authenticity to these books and an extra thrill. Leonard Nimoy, the iconic Spock, was a standout regular. He narrated Spock's World, a book from 1989 by Diane Duane. Leonard Nimoy also voiced Spock vs. Q in 1999, a lively audio drama that matched him against John Delancey's Q. John Delancey also contributed to Star Trek The Next Generation IQ and Q Squared. George Takei, the deep-voiced Sulu actor, narrated the novelization of Star Trek V The Final Frontier by J.M. Dillard in 1989. Takei also handled the Captain Sulu Adventure trilogy from 1994 to 1995. These were original audio dramas. James Doohan of Scotty fame also voiced some audiobooks, including Prime Directive by Judith and Garfield Reeves-Stevens in 1990. He did well voicing the other characters, not just Scotty. Jonathan Frakes, known for playing William Riker, also provided some voice work for these audio productions. Tim Russ, known for his role as Tuvok on Star Trek Voyager, narrated the Genesis Wave series by John Vornholt, released between 2000 and 2003. These books explored a catastrophic wave threatening the galaxy. The books were brought to life by Tim Russ's compelling and steady narration. This trilogy are among my favorite Star Trek audiobooks. I highly recommend them. There was a fourth book in the Genesis Wave series, but it seemed like an afterthought and was a letdown. I'd ignore that one and stick with the original 3 books of the Genesis Wave trilogy. William Shatner, the original Captain Kirk, couldn't stay away from voicing his own works. The Ashes to Eden in 1995 is a standout with William Shatner's dramatic flair, all enhanced by those familiar recurring musical cues and sound effects.
The hum of their weapons, the roar of the flames. They skirted the burning mound of wreckage.
He also continued the series with The Return and other entries into what is commonly called the Shatnerverse. Other notable cast members enriched the lineup, including Mark Leonard, Spock's father, brought to life through the book Sarek, along with Kate Mulgrew, Voyager's Captain Janeway. She narrated Mosaic by Jerry Taylor, which was an excellent backstory. As the technology advanced, the formats evolved dramatically. By the early 2000s, with the rise of CDs and MP3 discs, audiobooks could have longer runtimes. And then with digital media later on, the need for physical media eliminated entirely, which slashed or eliminated production costs. Digital allowed for the transition into full-length novels without any abridgments. In today's era, virtually all new Star Trek novel audiobooks are unabridged, typically lasting several hours. Gone are the elaborate sound effects and music, instead focusing on the pure, unadorned narration that faithfully captures every word of the original text. Simon & Schuster collaborates with Blackstone Publishing for contemporary releases such as the Legacies series in 2006 or the Lost to Eternity novel by Greg Cox in 2024, one of my personal favorites for its epic scope and another one of my recommendations. Professional narrators now take center stage, and Robert Petkoff has emerged as a beloved staple among fans.
The Vulcan nodded. At our present speed, we should arrive in the Libro system in 17 hours, 34 minutes. She's not exactly purring like a kitten, added Scott.
His chameleon-like voice allows him to embody multiple characters effortlessly, making him ideal for this immersive universe in these audio productions. He's behind standout works like Living Memory by Christopher L. Bennett, Captain to Captain by Greg Cox, Hell's Heart by John Jackson Miller, and more. The audiobooks do use other narrators, but Petkoff is a personal favorite. He seems to embody the voices almost perfectly. This evolution parallels the explosive growth of the audiobook industry as a whole. Digital platforms have removed all physical limitations, and fans now demand every last detail without compromise. Those vintage, abridged cassettes have now become collectibles, though many are readily accessible digitally on services like Audible and Spotify. In my view, the modern unabridged versions are far superior. They let the stories breathe fully, they honor the author's intent. The old sound effects, while nostalgic, often felt repetitive and intrusive upon revisits. They can come across as corny or overpowering, and sometimes the audio mix had the sound effects and music drowning out the narration. And if you're like me and you speed up the playback of an audiobook, the music and effects sound downright awful. It's a long shot, but I'd love to see classic Star Trek novels revisited with fresh narration someday. With fewer Star Trek novels being produced, it's great to have such a large back catalog to enjoy. What do you think? Share your favorite Star Trek audiobook moments in the comments. While there are no audiobooks for my work, you can still buy my novels on Amazon.com, and you can read a free sample of Death Siren at EricWilfordWatson.com. Until next time, folks, Eric Wilford Watson signing out. Live long and prosper.